Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you listen to this episode 247 of the Tree Talk podcast. I'm Jack Neville, and as always, delighted to be joined by Matt O'Callaghan of the Weekly Observer and Vale Star. Plenty of football action to get through this weekend, Matt, with the Senior Football Championship really heating up. We have the ladies, the return of their championship. We also have Masters and plenty much more to go through. So stay tuned for all that and more.
The impression the game you get out with what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well, God, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
I suppose the club action is fully back now, Matt. We've no more in county for the rest of the year. Obviously, with the hurlers in All Ireland, ladies footballers fun at the final hurdle in the junior championship. But I suppose it's been a long time since I asked, how are you keeping?
I'm good, Jack. I'm very good. Just of course, after a couple of weeks holidays, and I was away for 2.5 weeks, and despite at great inconvenience coming in to do a podcast with you, I'm only messing, Jack. But yeah, look, it was great to refresh. I missed 2 rounds of the senior hurling championship, but now I'm fully engrossed in the county championship. And look, we're coming to an exciting stage in the respective county championships, Jack, because we saw what happened last weekend. Like, there is a picture emerging, and I think there will be a much clearer picture after this weekend, particularly in the senior football championship. Now, I got to see 3 senior football championship games at the weekend, and we'll be talking about them more in depth later as we go along. But yeah, it would be wrong to say that that's what's transpiring in the football championship to date isn't what we expected. It's very, very much along the lines that we expected. So, but it's going to be very interesting, and some very interesting key games this weekend, which will go a long way, both in the senior and intermediate championships in deciding what teams will be involved in the knockout stage, and for those struggling, who may be involved in the relegation playoffs.
Yeah, you mentioned you were back in action. You were at a couple of the club games. One of those games was in Eskeaton on Sunday morning, and little did you know at the time, you were in close proximity to the new Limerick football manager, 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴, who was obviously over Newcastle looking for a 3 in a row. But the announcement came out a few hours after their win over Claughaun that Jimmy is set to be ratified as the new Limerick football manager. And having spent, a share of time with Jimmy over the last few years with his role in Newcastle, you can't but be happy for him and excited for Limerick football, because we've seen what Jimmy has done with his native Newcastle. He's obviously well able to guide a team, has seen Newcastle win back-to-back titles. They've got to a Munster final. So congratulations first and foremost to Jimmy, and he looks to be the outstanding candidate.
Yeah, Jack, 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴, I will kill him. I interacted with him so often on the sideline on the last Sunday, and you too interacted with him at halftime, because he told me, but happiest congratulations to Jimmy. And Jimmy is a very good fit for the job, and it isn't as if to somebody that's coming in that's a greenhorn to the whole Limerick setup. Jimmy has been part of the Limerick setup in the past with his brother Billy, and we saw what that led to. A transition from Division 4 to Division 2 under their watch, and his record, is very, very impressive, Jack. Newcastle West are seeking a third in a row this year, and Jimmy has been the manager for the last 2 years. And what we should not forget is that he has managed very, very successfully to juggle between managing the Newcastle West senior football team and the club's Premier Intermediate hurling team, who got to the semi-final of the county championship last year. So I think that speaks volumes for the type of man we're talking about and the type of character we're talking about. He obviously has that capacity, Jack, to get the best out of people, and you can see I suppose you could say it a kind of a laid-back management style, as we have known with interactions with him over the years. But yeah, I think it's a very, very good fit, and it'll be very interesting in the coming weeks, Jack, to see what the composition of his backroom team will be. You know, from his career background, I would expect that he would put he will put an awful lot of thought into that. But having said that, he will not be sitting on it either, because he will be anxious, like himself, to get his backroom team in place and to ensure that they can run the rule over as many players and as many clubs as they can between now and the end of the football championships.
Yeah, and I suppose Jimmy has seen an awful lot of teams up close and personal over his career, I suppose. So that's a huge advantage to actually have seen those players. But you mentioned his managerial style. He's a gentleman. If you ever met one, he's Jimmy. But I know for a fact, if the hammer needs to be hammered, he's the one to tell the Newcastle boys what needs to be done, and I'm sure he'll do the same for Limerick. So congratulations, first and foremost, to Jimmy. As you said, it'll be interesting to see who's with him in that regard. But yeah, it's an exciting appointment, Matt.
It is a very, very exciting appointment, and you can see the level of respect that his players have. We've seen it at first hand. I saw it at first hand last Sunday on the sideline. You know, he was there up and down past us, and yeah, look, I think it's a very, very good appointment, and I wish Jimmy the very, very best of luck. First of all, in his deliberations with his management team, and then when he takes over the reins later this year. I understand he's going to see out his term of office with Newcastle West, which they will be very happy about. And like it's coming to a climax now for Newcastle West. They have virtually sealed their position in the knockout stages, which is, you know, part one of any year's campaign, and now they have a bit of work to do in the Premier Intermediate Hurling Championship, but there's a long way to go in that competition yet.
Yeah, obviously Jimmy was busy on Sunday morning, as you mentioned, with Newcastle's third round win over Claghon. As you mentioned, 3 from 3 from Newcastle. I was there for a share of that game. There was an event on the town. So Newcastle comfortable winners on Sunday afternoon against Claghon, Matt. There wasn't much to be said for the game. It went the way we expected.
I think, Jack, it went the way, you know, we had known that Newcastle West were defending that title, seeking 3 in a row. But of course, that you don't mention that in Newcastle West football circles. It's every game. But look, for Newcastle West on Sunday morning, Jack, you know, it was a question of getting the job done, and they got it done efficiently. Like it was far from their best performance, and it was the type of a performance that certainly wouldn't win a county title, but it was just a question of getting the job done, and they got it done very, very effectively. Now, Claghon for long periods, Jack, they were plucky, but they seemed to run out of ideas when especially when they went into the Newcastle West half, and you know, they were turned over too easily, too often, and once Newcastle West got Newcastle West, as you will recall, you were there for a lot of the first half, Jack. They played into the breeze and they swarmed the Claghon goal early on, and by half time, that they had been 5 points up, and I think the writing was on the wall for Claghon after that. Now, for a period in the second half, they had a bit of a bright spell. They got a couple of points, closed the gap, but then Newcastle West put on the throttle again, and in the end, they won 112 to 5 points, and I think they were worthy of every point of it. And as I said, it will not be their best performance. We'll be coming to it in a second. The Newcastle West will have a real test this coming weekend when they face 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴 tomorrow evening.
Yeah, we'll go through all the first round games before we get in, or the third round games before we get into this weekend's action. But mentioning KP,
can we leave one out, Jack?
No, that's the one.
The clash of the two valleys.
That's Group 2, so we'll continue with Group 1, but we'll definitely get into that game, the Ballysteen Goal Show. But also in Skeeton on Saturday night, you mentioned KP there. They made it 3 from 3, and while we might have expected them to come past Claghon and Oola in the first rounds, that was really a statement of intent from 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴 2 12 to 9 point winners over Kieran's. I saw the second half after coming from Ballygrant from our own game, and really comfortable, really dominant. Peter Nash got a pair of goals. I think 10 or 12 minutes into the first half, they were scored before I arrived, but they never looked in any bother for the rest of the game, and they're pretty much home and hosed into quarter-final, and they can seal top spot this weekend. And you know, we'd spoke about second-year syndrome, but there doesn't seem to be any of that for KP.
No, not at all. And they hit the ground running. And as you said, Peter Nash, he got 2 goals in 2 minutes, Jack. In the 9th and 10th minute, he was irresistible, particularly in the first half. But by the time it came to half time, it was job done. Having said that, I was very impressed with 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴, and I'd seen him a couple of times last year, and I was even saying it to some of their connections after the game when we were chatting that there is measurable improvement. Rather than suffering a second-year syndrome, what they have actually done is they have learned from last year, you know, and like they have to face what are notionally at least the 2 best teams in the group, i.e. Father Casey's and Newcastle West. But what a position they're in, Jack.
Yeah.
You know, going in after 3 games with 6 points, they can give it a right lash in these 2 games, knowing that there will be no detrimental consequences to their chances of being involved in the knockout stages, because with 6 points, it would take a seismic miracle, you know, to prevent them from going through. On the converse, Jack, and you'll probably agree with me. I was very, very disappointed with 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴. Very disappointed. Like I had expected a good bit out of 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴 this year, and I'll tell you why. I thought they had a good run last year in the group stages of the championship, took them to the quarter-final, where they, you know, basically put on a no-show against Monaleen and lost. They seem to be following it up this year with the addition of Alan Daly by clinching the league. Now, I saw them in the first round against the Oola. I was disappointed with their performance. They were lucky to get over that game by a point. Then, without John Hayes and Dara Tracy, they ran Newcastle West to 3 points. And you said, you know, this is more like it from 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴. By God, I was very disappointed with them on Saturday, Jack. The loss of Dara Tracy and John Hayes is simply incredible. But in fairness, any rural club, Jack, couldn't take the loss of players of that calibre, in fairness. But I think their chances of surviving in the championship race now, their chances of surviving at senior level, I think are very, very good. But their chances, they're quite slim at this stage, I think, because we have a situation now whereby if they lose at the weekend, like
they're gone.
Division 1 is cut and dry after that. By my reckoning, it will take Father Casey's to 6 points. It will leave 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴 languishing on 2 with 1 game to play.
Yeah, no,
So,
the top three will be confirmed with that game. Unless there's a draw, it'll keep it alive till the last round. But we'll get to this weekend's games. But if Father Casey's do beat St. Kieran's, we know our top three, and the bottom three will be in a fight out because all of those can go down because there is a huge game in that group, Clahan versus Ula, which we'll get to. But on Ula, they were beaten by 7 points by Father Casey's. Didn't see that game. There was a lot of games on around the same time on Saturday evening. But from what I heard, they were very good right up until maybe the last 5-10 minutes. And then Father Casey's pulled clear with 1-3 for Casey's. It's a matter of job done now. Both days have been relatively convincing against Clahan and Ula, but will need probably improved performance. But you mentioned Kieran's missing players. So are Father Casey's, but they're just getting over the line when needs be. At 114 to 1-7 to finished. They move on to 4 points. Job done, I suppose, for that Debbie Fieldman.
They're building nicely, Jack. Like it was, Father Casey's, who was so near last year, beaten in the semi-final. I saw him in an earlier round against Clahan, and I said to myself, I came away here with the convinced that this was a team back in transition again. I was talking to some of the Father Casey's connections after the game, and they were telling me about the number of players that lost, which they had lost, and key players at that, which we know about now. I think there may be 1 or 2 drifting back again now. So, yeah, look, this is an old failing of Ula's, Jack. We've seen it a couple of times recently. Now, it didn't affect them so far this year, but obviously it affected them. I didn't see the game against Father Casey's. I'm only depending on the information that I got, but that appears to be what happened. And it lets Ula in a situation with 3 defeats that they are facing an absolutely, status-saving practically game at this coming weekend.
Yeah.
So I thought their performance in the first round against St. Kieran's warranted more than a draw. Wanted more than a 1-point defeat, I should say. They possibly deserved to get something out of that game. Now, they had a player sent off on that day after 20 minutes, and it was a great performance after that. Now, they've lost their captain, Mikey O'Brien, to cruciate.
Yeah.
Who's a big loss to them. And of course, we know the loss that Josh Ryan is. Huge loss. Now, Josh is their coach this year, but it was disappointing for Ula. I think they were so near St. Kieran's, and they were quite near Kildama Pallaskenry as well, but they don't seem to be able to clinch it out and get over the line. They won't have room for that luxury this coming weekend.
Yeah, I was going to go through both groups first, Matt. We might just stay on Group 1 and get into this weekend and maybe get into predictions, because to be fair, there's an awful lot going on in that group with 3 huge games. There's no game you could really write off as not extremely important for those teams. And while we are touching on that bottom tier game, or not bottom tier, but that bottom of the table clash between Clahan and Ula, essentially it's over. If one of them teams loses, it's over. They're going to be in a relegation final regardless, unless Kieran's are beaten by Casey's and then losing the final round, and you have 3 teams finishing on 2 points. I think Clahan and Ula will just be looking at this game and seeing, just get this. If you win this game, you're pretty much safe. What do you think of the game, Matt? Clahan versus Ula?
Yeah, that's a simple permutation of it. But if you look a slight bit further, Jack, I think St. Kieran's played Clahan in the last game. And were Clahan to lose to were Clahan and Kieran's to lose this weekend, and Clahan beat Kieran's, it could come down to scoring difference. And in that regard, Clahan would be at a disadvantage in that they're minus 31 going into whilst the other 2 are minus 11. So in that regard, they have quite a bit to make up. But this weekend's game, Jack, it's huge, and it's going to be very tense in Carrick on Saturday evening, because the stakes are high, and by virtue of the better scoring difference, irrespective of what happens, if Ula win, I think, Jack, they will be safe. The same, I suppose the same can be said for Clahan nearly on the head-to-head.
Yeah.
Because irrespective of what happens against St. Kieran's, so it's going to be very interesting. Day off almost. I'm going for Ula to win by 4, Jack.
Ula to win by 4. I'm also going for Ula, but I wouldn't think it's going to be as comfortable as that. I would say 2 points, but it's a real knockout game at the other end. Like, to be fair to this football championship, there have been some very interesting games, and there's an awful lot of permutations, and this is one of them. It'll be very interesting. We're both siding with Ula slightly marginally, but these kind of games at the lower end of the table, they can take on a life of their own, and I expect it to be no different this Saturday evening. Then in mid-table, Matt, you have the clash of Kieran's and Casey's that we were talking about already, and Casey's can wrap up the top 3 on Thursday night with a win. It'll be themselves, Newcastle West and KP, regardless of what happens. But if St. Kieran's win, then they're in the driving seat, because they can get 6 points at a win in the last day. So a lot could turn this weekend for either team. Kieran's know they have to win, and Casey's know they can put it to bed with a win. 2 West rivals, teams that we probably would have thought would have got out of the group with Newcastle. One of them probably won't now. If it was me, I'm just slightly siding with Casey's. Again, I'm going for that 2-point margin, but how do you think this one will go?
You're going for a 2-point margin for Father Casey's, is it?
For Casey's, yeah.
Because your mic is still breaking up.
Oh, sorry. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I'm going with Father Casey's as well, because the magnitude of the prize is a playoff place at least. It's a minimum of a quarter-final spot. No, it's a quarter-final spot they're playing for, Jack. Because the semi-final is is going to be a straight shootout in the other game. But I was so disappointed with St. Kieran's last Sunday or last Saturday, Jack. I was fierce disappointed with him, and I just don't see. Now I understand that Dara Tracy and John Hayes are closing in on returns, but this group game is going to come far too soon for them. They may have to settle for the last game of the group, maybe, but I just don't see where they're going to pick up a win in this one. I think Father Casey's like they lost the first round to Newcastle West. The second round win over Clahan, which I saw. I wasn't impressed by Father Casey's that night, even though they won. But apparently that they were much better in the win over Ula. So I'm going for Father Casey's by 3 there, Jack.
Casey's by 3. So both have Casey's there to tie up the top of the table, and Ula to leave it to a final day. If those results happen, if Ula win and Casey's win, we do have that mouth-watering straight shootout to avoid the relegation in the final round. But we could also have an awful lot of permutations. But then at the other end, Matt, one thing we do know for certain that KP and Newcastle West, the winner, are into a semi-final. There's no doubt in that. And probably wouldn't have envisaged this after 4 rounds that we would have KP versus Newcastle West. But credit to KP for putting themselves in that position. Now, it will definitely be probably the hardest test they've ever had in a football championship game. But, they'll be looking forward to it. To me, Newcastle are definitely favourites. Before I give you my score, I'll let you go ahead and say how you think this game is going to finish.
Yeah, it's not one of my games for this weekend. I would just love that it would be, but the schedule doesn't allow it again with 3 games on Thursday night. I've seen both teams at first hand at the weekend. I thought I was hugely impressed by both sides, and I think that 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴 have a chance. Like, in many ways for 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴, it's a free shot in that, you know, they're absolutely assured, I think, of nearly making the knockout stages, barring some, as I said, a seismic miracle altogether. But Newcastle West, we didn't see the best of them last Sunday. Again, I'd have to mention, Jack, that last Sunday was, I don't know, you saw the first half too. I was hugely impressed with Emmett Richter.
Yeah. Yeah, no, very, very, very good player. Extremely
He was
good player.
outstanding. But very, you know, Ian Corbett is just easing his way back from injury. I thought he was, you know, rapidly getting up to the pace of the game again. They're without 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴, of course. But I'm going for Newcastle West to win it by just 2 points, Jack. But I think their experience, and both teams will have the same reason for putting the whole issue to bed at the weekend, for the simple reason is that both teams, 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴, really have to get their senior hurling championship campaign up and running. Newcastle West, as I signaled earlier in the podcast, they have a bit of work to do to stay in the hunt in the Premier Intermediate Hurling Championship. So both sides will want to put it to bed, but I'm going for Newcastle West, the experience of Newcastle West, to see him over the line by just 2.
Just 2 points for Newcastle. I'd be going for a 4-point win for Newcastle. I just think they know how to get the job done. They've been comfortable in all their games so far, so I'm just siding for a Newcastle West win by 4 points there myself. So we have 𝘬𝘬 Casey's Newcastle to win this weekend, and that would, if that was come to fruition, it would mean Casey's and KPE play for second and third in the final round, knowing they're both through. Newcastle will be top in the semi-final, and Claghon and Kieran's would meet in a relegation decider. That if Claghon won, there'd be 3 teams on 2 points. So we won't get into all that for the time being. But into Group 2, Matt.
If there would be 3 teams on 2 points, Jack, as I flagged earlier,
Claghon
are at a distinct disadvantage.
Yeah. No, 100%.
In terms, because then to be determined by scoring difference at that stage. So they're minus 31. The other St. Kieran's and 𝘬𝘬's are just minus 11 each. So like it's looking bleak for Claghon if they were there to lose, you know. But
yeah,
it all depends, of course, on St. Kieran's. Were St. Kieran's to avoid defeat and Claghon lose, you know, or if St. Kieran's were to avoid defeat, then the loser of the 𝘬𝘬 Claghon game is in the relegation playoff.
Yeah, regardless, because Kieran's be on 3 points. So yeah, there's a lot to play for
on the head. Yeah.
Then into Group 2, Matt. We didn't look back on the weekend's games. Before we get into the games themselves, just want to send our sympathies to the family of Shane English from Adair, the chairperson who passed away, I think, yesterday during the day. Shane was obviously involved with Limerick and Adair, has seen huge success with the club. His son Jack has been a key man for Adair in their 3 county titles, 4 if you include intermediate. So just want to send our sympathies to the English family at this time.
Yeah, Jack. I want to agree with that message of sympathy. I knew Shane very, very well, and our deepest sympathy to his wife and Jack and all the English family, of course. Shane was a native of Kilfinnan. You know, it was a bit. There was a little touch of irony, I suppose, the fact that Adair were due to play Ballylanders this weekend and this Wednesday, and the game is rightly off, even though Shane was a native of Kilfinnan. His family have very, very strong links to Ballylanders in that his father, John, was a native of Ballylanders, and you know, Shane's cousins would all have played with Ballylanders. You know, I knew him quite well, and you know, look, I found him a very, very interesting character, and you know, quite a charismatic candidate, even though, you know, he'd been ill for a while, and like, he was involved with the Adair teams, and as you said, his son Jack, if you remember, scored the winning goal in the county final, which, you know, was a great boost for Shane. And he spent a year as well with John, and I'm you know, I was shocked when I learned at the game on Saturday, when some of the Adair lads were telling me that Shane had been taken seriously ill, and that you know, his chances of making it weren't great, and that's how it transpired. And again, our deepest sympathy to his wife and to Jack and to the entire English family.
Yeah, so we extend our sympathies, as I said. You mentioned that Adair win over 𝘕𝘰𝘬𝘯𝘴, that made it 3 from 3, 16 points to 10. From what I gathered, it was fairly even in the first half, but then in the second half, there might have been a breeze. I know there was a massive breeze in Ballygran. I presume there was a breeze as well, that Adair probably had the breeze in the second half, used it and controlled that second half.
Jack, it was typical. It was typical Adair, and you've seen over the years that clubs and teams throw it at Adair in the first half, and they seem to absorb it all, and then come out in the second half and really hit you. What impressed me about Adair, in particular, Jack, they were very, very impressive. But like, when you factor in the fact that they had a number of players out through injury, and of the team nominated to play 𝘕𝘰𝘬𝘯𝘴 last Saturday, Jack English, for the reasons which we've already outlined, Robbie Burke and Mikey Lyons did not play. But it was a smoothless transition. That the players that came in, Ronan Connolly coming in, Mike Southgate coming in, you know, top class players, Mike O'Mahony coming in. And it was seamless, Jack. And what it told me is the strength of the Adair panel. And I came away from Kilmallock on Saturday evening absolutely convinced that, you know, we've a different Adair team this year than we had 12 months ago. And certainly, if you add the like of Jack English, Robbie Burke, Owen Ryan, Mikey Lyons, you have a very, very, very serious outfit, Jack. And they were worthy of their wins. Gales were plucky throughout. I think it was level at half time, level about 3 or 4 times in the first half. Gales made some of the early running. But in the second half, really, Jack, belonged to Adair. And then they were worthy winners in the end, and it's very, very hard to see them. And I know you will have other ideas, and I will have other ideas, because they play our respective clubs. And in the last 2 games, they were due to play Ballylanders this Wednesday evening, but that has been now deferred until Monday, the 11th of September. And later that week, they will be playing your own Ballysteen. But it's very, very hard to see anybody depriving Adair of going straight through to the semi-final. I was hugely impressed with him, Jack, I have to say.
Yeah, I wasn't that surprised to see they had won by that kind of a margin. Like Newcastle, they just seem to keep you at bay, keep you at arm's length throughout games, and just cruise to victories. And that's 3 from 3. And you said at the very start of the podcast, it's kind of gone as we expected, and that was one game we had expected, I suppose, Adair to win. What we didn't expect, well, I expected a Ballysteen win on Saturday evening. You didn't expect it going for your own Ballylanders, but it was a complete game of 2 halves. Ballylanders kicked 113 in the first half. That would have been enough to win a lot of games over the weekend as a whole, leading by 6 points. But again, the wind in Ballygran was huge. the boys, to their credit, in the second half, used the wind, kicked 6 goals, finished 6-9 to 117. Again, if you're Belllanders and you scored 117, you'd imagine you would have won the game and won it handy, but actually lost by 7 points. But puts a bit of a gap there. Palestine can look up now. Hopefully, Belllanders need to get a win. But I suppose, what did you hear about the game, Matt? Or
Can
are
I
you not
pass?
speaking about it? Yeah. No, there's no passing now. No passing.
No, Jack, I agree with you, and it was the talk mainly in Askeaton. I was in Askeaton both Saturday evening and Sunday, and it was one of the big talking points of the weekend, that how a team could score 1 goal and 17 points and not win the football match, because it certainly was one of the biggest scores apart from Ballysteen of the weekend. And it was the classical game of two halves. Like, Ballylanders looked to have, made the most of the win. They had 113 on the scoreboard at halftime, which is a very, very impressive score. But the concession, maybe, the concession of 2 goals in the first half gave through Ballysteen a lifeline. But in the second half, Jack, Ballysteen used the win very well. Now, I'm getting conflicting reports about the quality of the game. I have to say, mainly people saying that it was very, very good, exciting, open football. Now, there'd be certain elements that wouldn't like that kind of a game. They'd like it to be tight and kind of rugged and things. But, the general consensus seems that it was an expansive game. And in that regard, particularly in the second half, that Ballysteen had the capacity to open the Ballylanders defence, and did it, and took their goals. So, I say, hats off to Ballysteen. It was in the context of the group, Jack, it was a huge win for Ballysteen, and it means, for them, it means that they're still very, very much alive in the championship. And for Ballylanders, for the second year running, it's not looking good. It looks as if they could be embroiled in a relegation playoff for a second year in a row.
Yeah, all the games in these groups have huge consequences, because teams are all beating each other, and there's still a lot of the bottom half teams to play each other. Obviously, Ballysteen has to play Monaleen and Adair in the coming weeks, so they're probably the 2 hardest games you would have seen on paper. So there's plenty of football to be played in that group. But in the other game that kicked off the weekend, it was Monaleen versus Na Piarsaigh. They won 2-12 to 10 points with a man sent off after about 10 minutes. And again, Monaleen are a team that when they're on, they're really on, and it just seemed like they controlled that game. They were never trailing. Na Piarsaigh got it back to 4 points with the 8 to win the second half, and Monaleen got a second sucker punch goal, and they're now on 4 points, and they'll back themselves to win the remaining 2 games, and hope for favours elsewhere. But probably weren't surprised by the manner of Monaleen's win.
Monaleen, they lost by a point there in the first round, and Monaleen starting poorly seems to be a characteristic of them in the campaign, but they grow into the campaign, and certainly they were fortuitous enough to beat Ballylanders in the second round now. But apparently, from what I'm hearing, I wasn't there, but from people that were at the game in Cahan the other night, was that Monaleen were quite impressive, and that they won the game handsomely. This is a mirror image in many ways of it's very like Group 1 insofar as that it's nearly a winner take all here on this one. In that the winner on Thursday evening is virtually assured of going through to the knockout stages at least, and semi-final at least, and depending on what will happen after that. But I think Monaleen are going to be. That's my game tomorrow night that I'll be covering. yeah, I think Monaghan are going to be a formidable side, Jack. Yeah, I think that they. Now, having said that, the wind is in Ballystein's sails. 2 wins, two very impressive wins, 2 convincing wins. The return of Danny Neville, without David O'Shaughnessy, I don't think you can argue too much with that. I think that was a fair. That was a fair achievement. But Jack, if you're asking me for a prediction at this remover, do you want to come back to it?
Well, you can give a prediction now if you want. I was going to go into prediction next, so if you want to give your reasons why Monaghan are going to beat us, you can.
Yeah, well, I think Monaghan, they were beaten in the semi-final last year, narrowly beaten in the semi-final. Now they've had an influx of new blood this year. I think it's 3 players that have come in from Kerry, and that in itself is a major boost. I'm going for Monaghan, Jack, by about 2.
About 2. Well, I'll give you the opposite. I'll give you Ballystein +2. I was right. When you went against us last week, we won. So hopefully the omens remain the same. Obviously, it's a very difficult challenge, and Monaghan are one of the favourites every year in the Limerick Football Championship. But I just back the boys the way they're going at the moment. And then the other game is a huge one, Matt. And we mentioned it, Ballylanders versus Na Piarsaigh, with so much consequences. Ballylanders need to win to ensure that they're not in a relegation playoff.
No, it's Skelty Gales, actually, Jack.
Oh,
it's Skelty Gales and Na Piarsaigh.
Yeah, sorry, Skelty Gales and Na Piarsaigh. Again, a huge battle there between Kelty and Na Piarsaigh. Kelty and Na Piarsaigh both have 2 points. If either of them want to get into the quarters, they need to win this game. If they lose, probably gone from the reckoning unless a load of results go their way and points differences swing and all that. Both won in the first round and have both suffered 2 successive losses. But I think each team will be confident of their chances. How do you size this one up?
Yeah, like they've had a similar trajectory to this point, as you rightly pointed out. They both won in the first round. Skelty Gales beat Ballylanders. Na Piarsaigh beat Ballystein, but they have subsequently lost both games. Na Piarsaigh lost to Adair and more recently to Monaghan, while Skelty Gales lost to Ballystein and again more recently to Adair. I think this is a difficult one to call, but I thought Skelty Gales in the first half last Saturday did everything right, but they weren't able to sustain it over the hour. Now, I thought they were very, very good against Ballylanders in the opening round. I didn't think they were as good against Ballystein in the second round for obvious reasons. I thought I saw in the Gales last Saturday. I thought that I saw enough of them in the first half, and in general over the hour, that they will have enough to survive, Jack. And I'm going for the Gales to win it by 3 points.
Yeah, it's a one you could definitely go either way. I'm in 2 minds. I like to back a draw every round, and if I was to back a draw, I think this is the one. But I just think Kelty could have enough. Obviously, in the 2 Childs brothers, they have 2 superstars. Na Piarsaigh are probably a better all-around team.
And they were.
So
No, they were good last Saturday, and I suppose encouraging for Skelty Gales on that point, Jack, is that Maurice O'Sullivan made a cameo appearance late in the game. So,
okay, he's
he's
a huge difference.
It will have helped him on his way back, and what Maurice, he'd make a huge difference were he to regain full fitness and play. So look, I'm going for the Gales by 3 anyway, Jack.
Yeah, I'll go for Kelty by 2, but I think if there was going to be a draw this round, I think it might be Kelty Gales versus Ballylanders. But a couple of intriguing ties there, Matt. The only one we've gone different is the Ballysteen test again. I suppose maybe the green mist is coming through there, but we both said Ula Casey's Newcastle West in Group 1. Both said Gales in Group 2. You said Monleen and I said Ballysteen. So there are predictions. Before we go from them, this is how we got on last week, Matt. Both of the Dare, Newcastle and Father Casey's. I had Ballysteen against Ballylanders. You had Monleen against the Piercig. I had back the draw in that game, and KP were the other game. Then KP's win over Kieran's. We had both said KP would come through that. But you're still 4 points clear, Matt. So you have a bit of a comfortable lead at the moment. Are you confident going into the 6th round of predictions?
You're coming back now, Jack. You're coming back. There's no doubt about it. The momentum is with you, Jack, at this stage.
The momentum is in West Limerick at the moment. But look, there's plenty of time left, and there's only 6 games around that we're looking at, so there isn't much opportunity to get a load of points, But that's the way it's going for us at the moment, Matt. Just briefly, and I know we're having some issues with internet, so I hope you can hear me. The Intermediate Championship, Matt, and we spoke about it so much last year, the walkovers, and it's just the case again this year. And obviously Father Casey's pulled out very early, so we knew who was getting relegated. But Glynn are after giving Mungret a walkover, which more than likely puts Mungret straight in the semi-final. But it's something needs to be done with that championship. The first thing that came to my head is, could you look at maybe a Premier Intermediate style championship like we have in the hurling, where there's 8 teams, because there probably is 12. There isn't 12 teams competing in Intermediate. There's probably the bones of 8 or so, and then you just reshuffle the deck around maybe lower Intermediate, Premier Junior, and Junior A. But something needs to be done with that championship, Matt.
That has to be, Jack. I've been flagging this now with well over 12 months, and we'd be saying it as a hobby horse and all this sort of thing. But and the Piercig got to the knockout stages last year of the championship, Jack, with only 3 games, while some of their opponents had 5. They got 2 walkovers, and we're going to have we're having a similar situation there. Mungret are sitting top of the pile at the moment with 8 points, that's from 2 of those points are from a walkover, and what happened last year was we had the walkovers in the same group. Now we have a walkover in both groups this year. That's the difference. But at this level of competition, and Jack, I'm not arguing for 1 minute about the structure of the competition, but I think you've said a lot there when you spoke about having an 8-team one group similar to the Premier Intermediate Championship. I think that may be the way forward, and then to structure it down from there, because certainly there's one thing. There are 2 things, Jack, that I would say, and they are, first of all, this system is not working, and the second thing I'm saying is that it cannot be allowed to continue.
Yeah,
allowing this system to continue it's just simply not an option. Now, I spoke with the chairman of the football committee about this very issue on Sunday, and he's quite aware of the situation, and quite aware of the importance of it being addressed. No, it's not a matter of addressing it or not. It has got to be addressed. And I think, Jack, that what you said, and if you look at the particular groups at the moment, I think what you're saying lends itself to it, because there are 2 teams. There are 2 teams basically struggling in each group. But as I said, doing nothing is not an option. The integrity of the competition is at issue here. It's a serious situation. And you're going to get walkovers, but like you don't get walkovers in your second most important competition in the football calendar.
Yeah,
and you don't get walkovers for a second year in a row. You don't get one walkovers this year. That the whole integrity of the competition is at issue here.
Yeah, and I know Napier got through it last year, but it doesn't help the teams getting walkovers. I'm sure they'd want their 5 group games and whatever amount of knockout games. Like that break from Munger now won't do many good. There'll be the bones of 4 weeks between them and their final game, and they'll probably have a semi-final, so it could be 8 weeks before they play again. I think Broadford are due to play Glyn in the final round. Will they get a walkover? That would be a huge break to their quarterfinals. So, as you said, integrity is what you want there. And there's some really good teams in intermediate. Like we've seen Napier this year when their first came back up. KP are into quarterfinal. Clahan got into quarterfinal their first year. Kelty have been in the semi-finals since getting up. There's teams coming from intermediate into senior and making their mark. It's just at the lower end of intermediate, something needs to be done. But we won't dwell on that anymore, Matt. It was just important to say it. Go on.
But Jack, the best example of all coming out of intermediate are Adair.
Oh, yeah.
See what Adair achieved after coming out of intermediate.
Yeah,
they were only down for 1 year, but see what they achieved. Like it's a competition that can be a very, very good stepping stone, as you have rightly pointed out. It's only 2 years, 2021, since Kildare were intermediate football champions.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So
I don't know. As I said, and as you rightly said, doing nothing about this, Jack, is not an option. And no. I think the 8-team group is maybe the way forward, because if you look at the present structure of it, and call a spade, Jack. There are a couple of teams actually in Group 2, and they have 2 points. And what are the 2 points from walkovers?
Well, so, I can think of. There's definitely.
I rest my case, but this is the sort of thing. This is the sort of thing that we should be talking about at conventions and all this sort of thing. And this is the sort of things the clubs should be focusing on. Now, a structure will have to be found. If the 8-team structure is the solution to the intermediate championship, then it means adjustment down to the Premier A junior football and the Junior A football, the Premier Junior football and the Junior A football.
Yeah, but if that needs to be done,
is that a case for a Premier Intermediate and for an intermediate football championship? Is that space and scope for both of them? I'm not sure there is.
Yeah, I suppose the way it is at the moment, they're all 12 teams, and Premier Junior is only in its second year, so that was changed. But what I'd be saying is leave 12 in the top, then you have 8 in the next tier, and then you work down from that how you want to maneuver it. You could have the 12 Premier Junior teams, just take that 4 extra and have it a 16 team championship and leave the Junior A as is. You could try and change them all and maybe have 2 8s in the middle, 12 in the Premier Junior, and bring up 4 Junior B teams. Look, it's for another day, but something, as you said, something needs to be done. It can't just be left like that. It's been like this for a few years, so sooner rather than later, we need to sort this.
Plus the fact that, Jack, I heard in my travels last weekend that one of the clubs that's in trouble now, and I won't mention them here, in these 2 groups at the moment, adamant that they want to come down junior. But if this system was to be persisted with, that can't happen, because the relegation place has been claimed now by further cases. And if it can't happen, what are you going to have next year? You're going to have a repeat again.
Yeah, I heard that as well, a certain team. And if a team wants to go down, there could be underlying reasons behind it. And, but I think a Premier Intermediate style is something that came to my mind, and I don't see any fault. Like, obviously, a lot of restructuring will have to go on underneath it. But if that is the case, that is the case. But we won't dwell anymore on that. Obviously, the Premier Junior and Junior A championships are going along. As we said, once we get into the final rounds, we know the permutations more. we'll sort all those. But the Ladies Football Championship kicked off over the weekend, Matt. We had 3 games in the top tier. We almost had a shock with the champions run so close by Old Mill, but Monaghan held on for a 1-point win. And in the other group then, in the same group, Ballylanders had a 5-point win over Fiona Castleman. And then Ula, on the return to the senior grade, somewhat shocked, I suppose, a lot of people, beating St. Ailbe's by 2 points. What was your overall take on the first round in the senior championship in the ladies football?
Yeah, look, I was speaking to some Monaghan connections in the week, and they were saying they were very fortunate to get out of Old Mill with a 1-point win. But the one thing about the group, the Group A, Jack, or Group 1, it seems to be very, very tight now. I was out at the Ballylanders Fiona game. I saw it in Ballylanders on Sunday evening, and it was a very, very interesting game, and it was a good game, Jack. And but I suppose in the end, the greater experience of Ballylanders, and you had the like of Cathy Mee very much to the fore, and Andre O'Sullivan. Andre got the game's only goal. And people like Trina O'Donnell and those, the experienced core in Ballylanders took them over the line. But Ballylanders played with the wind at the first half, or against the wind in the first half, were a goal up at half time, and seemed to stretch the lead to 5 points shortly after half time. But Fiona Castleman hit back, got a penalty. It was excellently saved by Orla Moriarty in the Ballylanders goal, but Breed Flanagan followed up maybe a couple of minutes later, and she rounded off a move and put it into the net. So going into the last quarter, Jack, Ballylanders led 1-6 to 1-5, but Fiona Castleman didn't score again, whilst Ballylanders got 4 points. Now, what it suggests to me, is that, we're in for a very, very good competition, because Ballylanders play. The second rounds are on next Tuesday evening, and Ballylanders travel to Monaghan, whilst Old Mill travel to, I presume, to Cooley-Roo to play Fiona Castleman. But apparently, all the indications are that Old Mill are very, very strong this year, and that. But I saw Old Mill. I didn't see him last year. I saw him the previous year, and I thought they were quite good. Now, if you have a team like that can boast top county players, like you've Sophia Hennessy in goal, you've the like of 𝘕𝘰𝘬𝘮 𝘬𝑃₴, the Limerick captain Roisin Ambrose, and Iris Kennelly, who I'm told on Sunday evening was an absolute sparkling for him. So it's all pointing to a very, very good competition, Jack. And from a Ballylanders point of view, they have to travel to Monaghan and Old Mill, which will be very, very interesting. But I suppose, Jack, and you flagged it there in your opening remarks on the Senior Football Championship, the one that really, really caught my eye was Ula's win over St. Ailbe's. Now, there are only 3 teams in that group, and in the context of the group, obviously a win is absolutely huge. Now, I saw Ula last year. I saw him in the county final. They won a very good county final against Natani and Cappamore, and I was impressed with him again. Of course, they are littered with county players. You've Fiona Bradshaw, you've Leah Coughlin, you've Amy Ryan, that type of experience. But you would have fancied all day nearly that St. Ailbe's would be probably a bridge too far for Ula in the first round, but not at all. Actually, they got the win, which from a confidence point of view, for Ula will be absolutely huge, Jack. And they're in action next Tuesday night again when they host Drumculloher Broadford, who were beaten in the semi-final last year. So that will be a very interesting game, and another test of Ula. They've beaten last year's runners-up, and now they will have an opportunity to beat one of last year's semi-finalists.
Yeah, it was an exciting start, and as I said about the intermediate, often teams that are, on the crest of a wave coming from intermediate up, make that breakthrough. And Ula there are, give fire to the teams intermediate that there isn't much difference between the tiers, and the likes of Old Mill now pushing Monaghan all the way. By the Landers there every year. St. Ailbe's now will want to get a win on the board and prove that maybe the first rounders weren't at the races that much. So it's shaping up to be an exciting championship already, Matt. And obviously we saw the girls playing with Limerick all year, that there's plenty of quality in the county. Again, there's loads of grades in these, but we'll just stick with the senior for the time being as we go forward. But I suppose one unique grade that we'll look at, Matt.
But Jack, it's important to say that in the senior football championship or in the ladies football championship, the group stages are little more than a grading situation.
Yeah.
Like there'll be 2 semi-finals up for grabs, there'll be 2 quarter-finals up for grabs, and the 2 bottom teams will play off for the final place in the quarter-finals. So, like, everybody will have a second chance. Like, but what we've seen are just the early indicators. I think the competition will settle in again next Tuesday evening, and like it'll be a very interesting game between Monaghan and Ballylanders.
Yeah, repeat of the final that we had. Was it? Oh, Matt's gone again. Yeah, obviously Ballylanders and Monaghan met in last year's final. Monaghan making it back-to-back wins. And I suppose moving from that football, Matt, to complete our football episode, we have a unique grade in the Masters. Football are in the Spirit Cup semi-finals. They play Kildare this Saturday in Courtwood J Club in Laois at 1:00. And for those asking, Matt, what is the Spirit Cup? Is it the 3rd or 4th grade of the Masters competition?
I think it's the 5th, Jack.
Okay. It's still a cup.
Basically, what happens in the Masters is that there were 23 counties took part in the Masters this year, just to give an explanation of it. And each team played 6 group games. And all the results fed into the one table, and the top 20 then qualified for what was the knockout stages, graded knockout stages, 5 fours. So Limerick finished somewhere about 17th or 18th, which left them in the Spirit Cup, which would be the 5th group. Now the like of Louth, Waterford, and it just escapes me at the moment what the 3rd county that failed to make it through. But Limerick are playing in this Masters Spirit Cup semi-final on Saturday, as you rightly said, at 1:00. I think it's a place called Courtwood, is it, Jack? Or Courtwood in Laois?
Courtwood,
the teams have similar. They've similar records coming into the game, in that both teams have played 6 games and both teams have won 2 games. So that would suggest that it's going to be very, very even. We know what Limerick's record is. Beat Waterford in the first round, lost to Kerry, lost to Laois, beat Westmeath, lost to Roscommon, and lost to Cork. And the last 2 losses were by a single point to Roscommon in St. Pat's and to Cork in Mitchelstown. Now, Laois, Kildare had something similar. They lost to Westmeath. They lost to Dublin. They lost to Westmeath. I'm trying to think of this off my head now, Jack. They beat. I know they lost the last 2 games to Mayo and London. I'm trying to think. Oh, they beat Galway in one of the games anyway. But they've 2 wins anyway. So, like, coming into the game, they have similar records, which would suggest that they're pretty evenly matched. And I saw 3, I think, of the Limerick Masters games this year. Like, and it's a very entertaining competition, Jack, and it prolongs the playing careers of a lot of players. Now, there are a number of players on the Limerick Masters team who are still turning out for their clubs. I'm thinking of the likes of Maurice O'Connor and Ronan McGee for 2 anyway, who are definitely, and I'm sure that there are others who are turning out with their clubs. But the prize for the winner on Saturday, Jack, is a Spirit Cup final against Armagh, because Armagh won the other semi-final against Westmeath last weekend by 2 points. So that will give you an idea, because we'd beaten Westmeath as well, and Westmeath had beaten Kildare. So you can see it's very, very hard to unravel a favourite and to predict how it will go. I'm hopeful, Jack, that Limerick might make it through to the final.
Yeah, it'll be great for those players just to continue this journey, because it's been a long enough campaign, Matt, as you said, with all the group games. So you're in a semi-final, all you want to do is win that semi and get into the final. So that's 1 o'clock this Saturday in Courtwood in Laois. The Limerick Masters are out. As we had said, there's a load of football action this weekend across the club championships. Starting this evening, I think there's one game to be played this evening. I think it's Calbally versus St. Pat's in Group 1 Intermediate. Obviously, 2 games called off tonight, and then plenty more to come over the coming days. And we'll be back with the hurling next week. So the club championships are really kicking into gear. Third round seems to be kind of a moving round, but we'll know a lot more about the football this weekend, and we'll have the hurling back next weekend. Apologies if there was any issues with the audio. I won't know till I go back and listen, but we do our best every week, and please God, it wasn't too bad. It can be rectified in the editing process, which I'll go and do now. But as always, a huge thank you to everyone that watches, contributes. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. I know, looking at the analytics, most people aren't subscribed, so if you can, it would mean a lot. It would help spread that algorithm. On Facebook, do the same, like and share, and Twitter, like, retweet, all that good stuff. As always, a huge thank you to you, Matt, for your contributions, and to everyone listening. This has been episode 247 of the Treaty Talk podcast. Thank you, good luck, and we'll see you next week.
The impression again we get out with what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods, and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well, Johnny Buckley. To do that to Tomás O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word court today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴 𝘔𝘰𝘦𝘯𝘴 leading the charge of the 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.